Hey, this is Danny from Scare Talk. Before we get into all the horror greatness, I gotta let you know about Anchor. Anchor is the host site that we use to record our podcast. Anchor will upload your podcast to Apple and Spotify and many other listening platforms. Anchor is completely free, and you can download the app or go to the website, anchor.fm, and you can record straight on there. There's also some cool editing tools that you can use. Did I mention that it's free? Yeah, so if you want to make a podcast, Anchor is the way to go. Go check it out. Now, for the spooky stuff.
Welcome to Scare Talk, a horror movie podcast for horror fans. This podcast will cover horror movie reviews, ratings, and rankings. Now for your hosts, Danny and Joel.
All right, this is Scare Talk. I'm Danny, and I'm here with Jumbo Joel.
Hey guys, what's up?
and
Jumbo.
and we have some guests today. This is Dan.
Hello.
And we have Emily.
Hello. Hold your applause.
So today we want to talk about Dan and Emily a little bit, and then the top 5 90s horror films from each of us.
Woo!
Yeah. So Dan and Emily, tell me a little bit about yourself. What you guys are up to.
We always got something up for us. We most recently are publishing our next graphic novel called The Zombie Game.
Dun dun dun.
Dan is the writer, and I am the editor/wizard of all things for
Very
the book.
Much made it happen. Yeah.
And also, I drew the companion coloring book called Legs Zombie Adventures, so you get 2 books for the price of 1.
Boom.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's been our exciting adventures for the
The stupid apocalypse or
Yeah.
quarantine, as we might know it.
So, what is this about?
So it is a full-length, full-color, 134-page graphic novel.
Yeah, we have to make sure it's 134 because she keeps saying
That's
134.
right.
So she doesn't want to be. It's like we're like, we can't go over now. People are gonna get mad.
I keep saying it. We've
Yeah,
committed.
we're committed. 134.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
34. About a group of college students who go to the end of the year party only to find themselves hunted by the rich in a live-action zombie apocalypse video game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
When I was messaging you guys and you said 134 pages, I was like, wow, that's very specific.
See the hook.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's like, why 134? We're not really sure. It's just what she started saying, and then she didn't want to go against it. And she's like, no, we need to edit a page. We need to get rid of one.
It's more
Even
than
if you
2.
go over, you can always just say to be continued and then just
There you
write
go.
another one.
That's right. That's right. That's right. At this point, I'm just going to have to add more pages to be a dick. So.
There you go. Cool. So anything else you guys got going on from your past? Like, what do you guys do in general?
Yeah, so we've worked in entertainment for a long time. Dan is a reformed actor and stuntman.
Yeah, returned writer. After you get beat up so much on and off camera, so you end up writing some stuff, and that's kind of how the book came about.
Okay.
I started trying to write things for me as an actor, and then I actually learned how to write, and it's been really a good time. I have a couple of other things out there right now. I have a horror comedy werewolf script that is doing the rounds. So
And
got
you
that going.
can check out his web series, The Fall Dude.
Yeah, The Fall Dude at thefalldude.com. It's based about my introduction into the stunt community when I got a random phone call out of the blue.
Wait, you missed the part where you were Kiefer Sutherland's stunt double.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
was Kiefer, on Touch, actually. It's the one that didn't quite make it.
The one no one watched.
Yeah, in between,
like season or two.
Yeah. It lasted 2. It was pretty cool. He is a little taller than I am, but not so much. And the reason I got the job was my hair matched his.
Oh wow, the important stuff, right?
Yeah, they literally brought me in and they cut my hair, and I had no idea what was happening because I got a phone call at work and they told me to show up, and I was like, I don't know what's going on right now. And they cut my hair, and then they had me come up to him, turn around so he could see the back of my head, and then he said, "He'll do." And that was how that went.
So
That's cool.
My back of my head did it.
Awesome. Yeah,
it's my favorite part.
He's one of my favorite actors, so that's cool.
24 is one of the best shows ever.
Yeah, 24 is awesome.
Yeah. And I did watch the first episode of Touch, which was really good, the pilot. But I didn't get further than that.
So you're why it didn't last.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Your head was not perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really cool. Good to know. Okay, so you guys want to get into this list?
Let's do it, man.
Do it.
All right.
Crazy 90s. It was the 90s. It was a different time.
Heroin chic.
Yeah.
Decade.
It was a pretty good decade, actually.
Did you guys grow up in the 90s or the 80s, or what would you say?
I grew up in the 80s.
Okay.
So I saw all of these in the theater and stuff, but yeah, it's like I grew up in the 80s of watching those kind of like slasher flicks and stuff like that. So the 90s kind of changed some stuff in the form, so it's pretty cool.
And luckily Dan married a hot young wife, so
exactly.
I grew up in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And which I think was part of why some of these were like so scary to me as a kid. Like they were actually scary. It wasn't like horror movie, whatever. It was like I was terrified of some of these.
Yeah. There were some pretty scary ones in the 90s for sure.
Yeah.
Especially as a kid. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, ladies first. Let's start with Emily.
Oh.
Are we doing honorable mentions first, or are we doing just the list? If you have any.
Don't worry, we're going to deep dive into this list, so we'll stick with the list for now.
Just for now. Okay. If anything comes about.
Right. So first, I'm pretty sure this is...
So do you want us to comment on it? Do we want to go for like the entire thing? Just like, or just kind of see what happens?
Is this a competition? Because I'm about to crush you if that's the case.
You can just name it and talk about why, and then we'll see where the discussion goes.
That's right. Okay. All right. I guarantee that no one will have my list except for the two Dan and I have the same. So let's kick it off with The Craft.
Oh, The Craft.
All right.
Okay.
The Craft. Who did anyone actually see The Craft at the time?
I did. Yeah. No, well, at the time. I think I saw it years later, but.
Yeah, and we all know that like the sequel / remake came out recently,
right?
Which was definitely somewhat of an homage to it, but it was one of like the first movies that I saw that actually had like dimensional women in horror. Like we were getting away from Final Girls, and it does, I believe, actually pass the Bechdel test. Which if no one knows what the hell that is, it's two women in a scene.
Yeah, not talking about a dude.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. It's like a feminist test of like scripts. And
Okay, yeah.
Let's rephrase feminist test as a test of good movie.
Right, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, a test of like actual full, like the. Never mind. Stop talking.
Yeah.
Got it. Insert ball in mouth.
And thus our marriage ends on live podcast.
On podcast.
Right? But no, it was, like we got to see women misbehaving. We got to see like women with some sort of power. We got to see them like have consequences. And like, it definitely falls into some of like the cult, campy camp, I think, but you have to remember like those effects from the 90s at the time were like revolutionary. Like we look back at them, but like, and they may look stupid at this point, but really like they were pretty great for that time. Mm-hmm. And like Nancy is like a seminal character for a bunch of women, because it felt like we were allowed to be bad. Like we were allowed to like misbehave, and we had stories that weren't just all of us getting killed.
Sure.
Yeah.
I could definitely see the value there. And this is Neve Campbell, correct?
Yeah, she's in it.
Okay.
Yeah, Fairuza Balk. I always say her name wrong, but
it's a tough one.
Yeah, she was was like she became like the evil girl and everything after that, like the Island of Dr. Moreau and stuff like that. Of course, the Water Boy.
Yeah.
She was absolutely brilliant in. The Water Boy.
Yeah,
American History X
Robin,
too. She didn't really have a
she
part of that.
Yeah,
but
she was crazy. Yeah.
Robin Tunney, who was like the lead in that, where like not a ton of them like went on to do a bunch of other stuff, but like Robin was in The Mentalist, I guess, for whatever whatever you wanna. And End of Days was Schwarzenegger, so.
Oh
yeah, she was in that.
Yeah. But it was just interesting to see. Like I think that's where so many like lady accounts on Instagram are all about like witchy horror, and I see so much of it is actually like influenced by that movie. It brought a lot of like visuals into pop culture of what we think of as witchcraft.
Well, what about Hocus Pocus?
Oh yeah,
that's the Disney version of.
Sure, yeah, sure. If we're gonna go, if we're gonna go, but that's actually a great point, because The Craft was in that like 90s era where everything was like going super dark. It was like a dark version of Hocus Pocus, and so like whatever you want to say about them eating kids or something, like.
Right.
It was not a dark movie, so like it felt like it actually had some grit. It was definitely a 90s movie. In a sense.
All right, well, good pick. Definitely not on my list, but I respect it.
It was almost an honorable mention, but yeah.
All right, Dan, you're up.
Me, Dan?
Yes.
I'm so confused with everybody else. All right, so I'm gonna go. I think I'll go from dusk till dawn.
Cool.
One of the major reasons is that their car is a 1968 Mercury Cougar, which is the same car that my grandfather had, and sold it before I could get it.
Oh no!
So I'm still bitter about it.
So
and I love that car.
Movie, then.
No, I love that car. But it was just an interesting, I think it was the first movie where it was two movies. Like Tarantino does this, Tarantino thing where the first part of the movie is like serial killers and it's really dark, and then all of a sudden it becomes kind of campy, and it's this like just all kinds of vampires and sex and the strip club, and it just goes kind of crazy, and people are punching through bodies. It kind of was that both sides of that coin.
See, that's what I actually didn't like about it the first time I watched it. It was years ago that I saw it the first time. I heard it was a vampire movie, and you get the vampire movie in the last like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
and it wasn't an
that's
intense 30 minutes for sure, but
yeah,
it was more of like a crime drama leading up to that point. With
That's
him,
true.
you know, but I definitely learned to appreciate it a lot more after the first time watching it, though. So it is a really good movie.
So many of those visuals like became a part of like what Tarantino movies are.
yeah. I think that was the thing about the Tarantino part about it, is that he tends to, he doesn't work in the traditional 3-act. And it was kind of confusing to me when I first saw it, because I was just kind of like, wait a minute, this doesn't really work with that part, but it was still cool, and it's still like, and I think that was one of the things that then I started to, like, I don't like everything that Tarantino has done, but I actually have really,
Don't start on Hateful Eight.
yeah, but, like, I find that because he just kind of, he's one of the very few people that can, like, just, say, screw structure and kind of do whatever he wants to do,
and bend genres.
Yeah, and he doesn't necessarily, it doesn't always work, but I think that this was a very interesting take. And also, at the time, with the vampires and everything, it was, people were, it wasn't as bloody and gory, and he just kind of accepted that and went crazy. And that's what I always kind of enjoy about it.
The thing with this movie, it is very Tarantino, but also a good mix of Robert Rodriguez in there too.
Yeah,
he was the director of it, and so you got the dialogue of Tarantino with like the vampire, everything of Robert Rodriguez. So the horror aspect of the movie was definitely the first half Tarantino, the second half Rodriguez. Right. You could see that in that movie, which they make a really good combo. So as far as that goes.
There's just something undeniably cool about, like, girls and vampires and blood and cars and, like, that, like, high-octane aesthetic. Like, it's just cool. Like, and it still holds up as being cool.
Right, yeah. And you can't forget Cheech Marin.
Oh, right. He had, like, 5 characters in that movie.
I know, right?
100%.
And Salma Hayek, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, look. I'm not going there. I'm just going to stop. I'm going to put the ball back in my bag.
Oh, man. Yeah, great pick.
Yeah.
Joel.
All right. So my number 5 is The Faculty.
All right.
Yes.
This movie came out at like the perfect age. This movie came out I was like 11 or 12, I think, when this movie came out in 98. At the time, I didn't see it for probably a year or two after it actually came out. I didn't see it. I wasn't allowed to see it in theaters. My family went to the theaters, and it was me and my mom, and I had a step family at the time, and they went to go see it. And then me and my mom, because she hates horror movies, we went to go see Patch Adams instead. So
I love it.
So not quite the same.
I don't know. That noodle scene is kind of weird.
I mean, it's a good movie. I enjoyed Patch Adams, but it's no Faculty.
That's true. True. Interesting. Also, a Rodriguez movie.
Yeah, Faculty. Definitely 2 in a row here.
Jon Stewart in it?
Yeah, he is.
He's one of the teachers,
one of the teachers. Yeah. And when you're a kid, you don't take these thoughts very seriously, but there's something always in the back of your mind thinking that maybe your teachers could be aliens, or it's always weird when you see them outside of school sometimes, like at a grocery store or something as a kid. So it's like, so it's definitely a lot of fun.
Right.
And it definitely came out at a perfect time for me seeing this movie. So I really enjoy this movie a lot.
No, it's very good. I enjoyed that one. It almost made my list. It was probably an honorable mention. I was already out of I was out of the army at that point.
98.
Yeah, so I was a little older. It's like, oh, high school, I'm out. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite good of a film. I was surprised when I went back and looked at it again.
You forget, like, Elijah Wood was in it, and, like, it was Josh Hartnett. Yeah, at the height of his Hartnett powers.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we all wanted to go to high school with him.
Except for me. But.
Yeah, this came out, a year before after Halloween H2O, so it's, like back-to-back Hartnett horror movies.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and then you got Usher.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And Robert Patrick, who feel like he got like a mini resurgence after all of his efforts in film.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played to me like almost the same character as in Terminator 2. Like that's all I can think of.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then
like,
Selma Hayek.
Right. But why would you release a movie like that on Christmas Day? Like, that is just so weird. Like, I don't know if they tried to bury it or what.
What are you talking about? It's definitely a Christmas movie,
right?
So I just watched this week to see if it would make my list. And
for the first time, or just
no. Just again, I've seen it probably 10 times or something, and but it did not.
Oh,
so yeah,
okay.
It almost. All right. So next for me is Misery.
Oh yeah, that's on my list.
All right.
It's on mine.
Hot debate, go.
Starting strong with a Stephen King movie. All right.
Yeah. We actually did an episode on this like a year ago when the quarantine kind of started. But Kathy Bates, she's just creepy, scary, kind of funny at times. Like you kind of laugh at some of her replacements for foul language, the kind of words she comes up with to not cuss. James Caan, he did a good job, as far as his character. But yeah, just the overall tone of that movie. And
you know that they were originally with the hobbling. They had the scene where she actually cut his feet off. Right? Are you aware of that? In the original?
No.
Yeah. So I read William Goldman, the adapter, his book, Which Lie Did I Tell? And he talks about like they had to change that part because like in the book she saws his feet off, and it just totally changed everything. So they ended up having to go in the other direction. But yeah, so it was one of those interesting things where you kind of like find out the history of it. It was really interesting because Jimmy Caan was kind of like the only guy who would take the role, because most of the guys didn't want. Harrison Ford said no, Richard Dreyfuss said no, just a bunch of people said no, and he was a risk because he had that drug addiction. And so they were like, he said he'd pee in a cup every day just to get the role because he really needed it. And they said it was that because he was a New Yorker and really always acting with his body and his hands and his movement, it caused this kind of like for him to lay still was really difficult for him, which helped create tension because he was just like always trying to hold himself still. So it created this weird like physicalness to him. It was, I really liked that movie a lot.
Well, and who would have thought Rob Reiner had it in him?
He just produced it.
No, he's the director.
No, he's the director.
Did he direct the whole thing?
Yeah.
Now I gotta look at this book again because he was only supposed to. He said no, and he was just going to.
I mean, we think of Rob Reiner as like Princess Bride and like.
Yeah. One of my favorites, A Few Good Men, that he did. Too.
Oh yeah, God.
But
Stand by Me.
Not Misery.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But I think that goes to the power of like Stephen King, right? And that's what we love about our horror is that having like that grounding in reality, that it makes it even more interesting because you can imagine that could happen to you.
Yeah, that monster in a house where the monster is a crazy lady with a giant, sledgehammer,
right?
Ready to slam it on your fist.
And she just is doing everything with this like good intention on her part. You know, everything she does, she thinks is like for the best for him. And it's
and the character, and that was her first big movie too. She'd done a lot of plays, but that's why they needed a bigger name. It's really good.
I can't imagine Harrison Ford in that role, though.
I mean, literally him doing nothing more.
But
There's Warren Beatty said no. Richard Dreyfuss. Who are the other guys?
Robert
De Niro,
Redford.
Redford.
He could have starred and directed that movie.
Right.
It was like who else? Pacino, Kevin Kline, Michael Douglas, Dustin Hoffman. Yeah, everybody said no.
Went
Warren
through a lot of people.
That no one wanted to be a prisoner and stuff like that. You know? And so
it's just a role, guys. It's not real.
Yeah. I know.
Right? It was a different time, right?
Yeah. But it's definitely a really good one. Definitely on my list.
Okay. Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, let's get to number 4. Emily, you're up.
Yep. Number 4 for me has to be Ringu.
Oh.
Not the Ring.
Not the Ring, but the Japanese.
Japanese.
The good version.
The good version. So I think this one is important because you really get to it really like introduced J-horror to American audiences, like eventually through The Ring, which actually unfortunately did not make the cut as a 90s movie. But the original did, and like just so many tropes that we see from like horror movies came from it, and I think like all really good horror movies, it had the second layer of being a mystery,
right?
And that the Japanese version was definitely darker. It was definitely darker. It explained the character in like a different way, and she was much more powerful in the Japanese version. But like that sickly green like coloring that really took hold in the 90s.
Kind of stop motionish, like the crawl thing and all that kind of stuff that really kind of like blew up in the 2000s.
Yeah, and it was just we were really starting to understand the power of technology and like how it could be used for good and evil. So like the idea that it's a videotape, like something that you consume that can kill you, that's part of, I mean, because for you young kids, it wasn't all digital downloads back in the day.
Very, very true.
At the time, you had Blockbuster and videotapes, and it was somewhat grounded in reality that like this new media, this threat of like new media could bring about like an old curse.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea of the videotape was really kind of new and scary.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, everybody has experience with that. And so, you know, like a phone call you get after it. Like, my daughter right now, she's 12, and she watches some, like, YouTube stories of, like, urban legends and stuff. And so she, like, out of nowhere, is like, I want to watch The Ring. I want to watch The Ring. And she's like, I want to see if I get a phone call.
No, you don't want to phone call.
That's why you said now it's what really pisses me off or makes me sad. I mean, and maybe this is just a stupid kid in me, but it's like I used to love making prank phone calls, And now everybody knows who's calling because it's on the thing. Exactly. And it's like, maybe you get one shot. Maybe you get one shot at a prank phone call, but not a. It's really sad. It just makes.
That's when you just dial random numbers and just.
Right.
But then they have your number, and then they can just. It's true. Not a star 69 type of a thing. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. It's like, oh.
And Sadako from the film was an old-fashioned like Japanese archetype, like. That archetype of like the vengeful spirit had been around in Japan for a really long time. So it was just interesting that it then clashed with like that very modern interpretation of the videotape, and we kind of lost some of that in the American version.
Yeah. I watched Ringu after I watched The Ring, and so much better.
Yeah,
a lot better. I was never a big fan of The Ring. But Ringu was actually terrifying at points. So
yeah, I mean, I look at it like some of the remakes, like Old Boy, like trying to.
Yeah, I heard that was really bad. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it's really bad.
The original is awesome. It's painful, but the remake with Josh Brolin is not good. So
yeah. All right, good pick.
Yep.
We're getting some foreign movies in there. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Dan.
Number 4. So this one, number 4. And it's on the cusp. It's Army of Darkness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's some people would argue that it's more of a comedy.
It's a horror comedy. It's a different subgenre for sure.
Yeah, and so and the fact that they still use stop motion. Some of the actual, fighting of the skeletons. It's like it was such an homage to some of the older, Clash of the Titans and things like that. I absolutely love. I love Bruce Campbell. I think he's like a comedic genius. And Boomstick. I mean, what are you going to do?
Iconic.
It's like it's pretty awesome. It's pretty ridiculous, and it's just, I had seen, The Evil Dead, and so it was like this continuation, and at the time, it was, I still have an affinity for the whole sequence. There's like an Evil Dead, the musical, that I love. It's just like the whole,
so good.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So there's just, I have such an affinity for that.
Nice.
Guys. You can
They're making another one.
Like, oh yeah, that's right.
They did Ash. They did Ash.
Yeah, that's a really good show.
Yeah, they did Ash, and it was fun. I liked the first season better. I'm not sure if it warrants like continuous story. It's pretty short, and maybe a miniseries, kind of thing. But yeah, I've always been a fan of those guys.
You can really see Sam Raimi developing his chops. It's weird because he's cutting his teeth on stuff like this that really is horror comedy, but then went on to direct some actually good mainstream horror films. If you like if you like more of the mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the Spider-Man and all kinds of crazy stuff that he's done. So
he'll be back in Marvel here soon too. So.
Yeah,
doing the next Doctor Strange movie. But
the Army of Darkness is hilarious. The first time I saw it, I was actually in my 20s, so I hadn't seen it, in the 90s, but I rewound or skipped back a scene multiple times just to rewatch certain scenes and laugh and laugh and laugh. And it's hilarious, and it goes well with the other Evil Dead movies, even though it's very different. It's still that style that Sam Raimi brings is very much there. So I love that one.
Yeah, it is a good pick for sure.
Thank
you. All right, Joel, you ready?
So my number 4 is Interview with the Vampire.
All right.
It's been a little while since I've seen it, but I just remember, I mean, it's got a great cast of actors in that movie, and definitely the acting is amazing in it. I like the story of it too. I never read the book, so I don't know if I read the book, if this might come off my list.
No, it actually was a fairly faithful adaptation.
Yeah, I read basically everything Anne Rice wrote up until she let her son start writing, and it was very good. It was definitely in my mentions. Tom Cruise, Pitt, Christian Slater, all those guys.
Tom Cruise,
Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah. Well,
Baby Kirsten Dunst.
Her character was kind of like how it all started, because basically, I don't know if you guys know this, but Anne Rice lost her daughter when she was really young, and basically, so her daughter would never grow up, just kind of like the character that Kristen Dunst played.
Okay.
And it was that kind of thing where everybody else ages and grows, but the child doesn't in your mind, and that's kind of where that character came from. It was very creepy and eerie when I got into Anne Rice novels and stuff like that, to know that was basically like her daughter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it adds an extra layer of eeriness knowing that.
Yeah, exactly, right.
With that character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a good movie.
Yeah.
All around.
So I'm gonna confess, I have never seen it.
Oh,
you gotta watch it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the last ones before vampires get all sparkly.
Yeah.
Deep Fang.
Yeah, became like
they actually rip throats out and.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Yeah, they didn't do well with the other ones, so I wouldn't do any of the other
Queen
ones.
of the Damned and
I really love the Vampire Lestat and the books and stuff, and so the rest are really crappy. This one is definitely the best of all of her adaptations.
Okay, yeah, I gotta watch it. When it came out, and I just never saw it to be a horror movie. I think because of who's in it, I was like, this is gonna be like a romantic drama or something, and so I've never just tried. So I think I'm gonna have to give it a watch.
Yeah, definitely take a look at it. It's monsters. Yeah, they're pretty bad.
They are actually monstrous. I think
they are.
She gets, I think she gets pegged as more of a romantic writer because of the way she actually writes. It's very literary. It's a lot of big words. It's a lot of big words in a string.
And a lot of them.
And a lot of them. But the movie itself kind of was able to distill the gothic parts.
And her love of New Orleans too. I think that's that histrionics of it, and the darkness of it.
All good stories, it's an origin story.
Yeah. And there's always something about New Orleans, Louisiana in general, that just there's something creepy about the settings that most movies or shows take place in. There's a history there that kind of makes the stories seem a little creepier too.
Yeah, there's an eerie feeling that that in New Orleans there is ghosts and these things. It's a part of the culture. It's a part of everyday life, as opposed to most other places.
Right. Yeah, the voodoo, right?
Yeah.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think I'll be watching that one soon. I keep meaning to, and just...
We should review it once you do.
Okay. All right.
That'd be one to go over.
Okay, so mine, number 4, is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. We just did a podcast on this one.
Yeah, we did.
I'm a sucker for all the slasher icons, and so Freddy is one of my favorites. And this one, I don't know when the last time you guys watched it, but it's very meta and very unique, and I think just a really good story. The horror is, it's there. It's Freddy, so it's not like super scary or anything, but the idea that the actors are playing themselves in the real world, where Freddy is trying to get into our world, the real world, is just really cool. And like you guys said, you like horror that's more grounded. And I feel like, Freddy is not grounded because of how fantastic he is. But in this movie, it is more grounded. So I really liked that. And then the kid in it, he's pretty creepy. And if you like Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, then this is like, it does a lot of callbacks to that. And so, one of my favorites as far as slashers go. So, had to put it in there.
The only other one besides the first that Wes Craven directed. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one was such a, like that was one of the first ones, like, slasher films that I saw. And I was like, God, I had been, I don't know, like young teenager and stuff, and I saw it when I wasn't supposed to see it in the theater and stuff. it was way creepy, like that bone with the tongue and stuff. So, like, Wes Craven is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely is.
Are you a Freddy fan, Emily?
Yeah, I had actually never even heard of this movie, but I have seen the originals, and I was even younger at that point, and that one was terrifying. Like her on the ceiling, and like just so much blood, and it definitely, even though like it was fantastical, like you have nightmares like that, and it was this feeling like you can't escape. I always felt kind of bad that like Wes Craven, I always felt like it was a Stephen King situation where like his stuff was very popular, but as he went through the decades, a lot of it got subverted and copied into copies, and so by the 90s, that must be why I missed this one, because like it just didn't have as much power anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely different than all the other movies. Like, there's really, I mean, they bring back some of the original actors from the first one, which is really cool. And it is a good movie. It's definitely one of my favorites, and one of Danny's favorites too. It's on his top 5 of the 90s.
Yeah. And I think, Emily, you bring up something that is valid, that this one was the least grossing out of all of them. And it's one of the better ones. You watch 2 through 6, and they're just, they're campy, and they get progressively cheesier. And, but then this one brings that franchise back to a more serious tone, and pretty much negates all the other films to a certain extent. It just focuses on the actors and their life after Freddy and after all the Nightmare movies. And so it's unique and pretty cool.
I definitely have to check that one out.
We'll have to rewatch that one.
It definitely does negate the others, because Nancy comes back in part 3 and she dies.
Right.
So to have the actress come back 4 movies later, pretty much for the same characters, it would have to. It was pretty much the first of those sort of direct to original sequels that they've been doing these days.
Yeah.
With Halloween, and now Texas Chainsaw Massacre is going to be doing the same thing. It kind of, without actually doing that, it kind of did that the first. Was the first movie that actually did that kind of thing. But yeah, I definitely would check it out if you haven't seen it. It's a good one.
All right.
Okay, Emily.
My next pick would have to be Coppola's version of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh yeah.
Hey, that's on my list too.
Now, I would argue again that people think this is a romantic film, and if you think it's romantic, you might need to go see somebody.
Yeah.
It mainly, like, the visuals were so crazy. Like, here is a very serious filmmaker with a capital F, like, making a horror film that is quite bloody and gory and monster-like. Like, Dracula is an actual monster at the beginning, along with the brides. And like, he just brought all of his filmmaking power to bear on this horror story, which proves that, like, horror stands the test of time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when I first saw it, I was kind of confused, like, because I had been so used to what other people have made Dracula to be, and it was just such a kind of like gut punch in that way, where it was like he was not a nut, he was, and Gary Oldman was just
he did an amazing job in that movie.
Yeah. And it was also kind of height of Winona Ryder's like career, and even
Keanu.
Yeah,
right. So, Mr. Dracula, sir,
didn't do a very good job in that movie, but yeah, that
Keanu.
accent of his.
Yeah,
I don't know what you mean.
Oh man,
I would like for you to come this way.
Oh yeah.
Anthony Hopkins had an appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what I mean. He got to like bring an A-list cast. Like the costume design was gorgeous. Like you got to, and I feel like a lot of people ended up pulling from it as well. Like Crimson Peak felt like almost like a Dracula flashback in places.
That was definitely a good one too. A lot more recent, but I could definitely see the Dracula in it for sure. Sorry, that was actually an honorable mention. It's on my list, but I have it as honorable mention. I know.
Don't worry, I'll elevate you, Coppola.
It was almost on my list for sure.
See, I'm just not a big vampire guy. I think that's why I hadn't seen Interview with the Vampire. I mean, I've seen Dracula and a few of the mini renditions of Dracula.
Now, have you seen like 30 Days a Night?
Yeah, I've seen that. Lost Boys. Those are cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Something about vampires just doesn't grab me. I don't know.
Well, especially what's become of vampires is very disappointing to me, because I used to love vampires. They were like super predators in a way. Like they were able to hunt within us and through us. And so that was always something that they could disguise themselves as us to hunt us.
Right.
And I found that to be fascinating. Nowadays we probably consider them serial killers that drink blood. But, they had, and then, different powers came to them in different ways. But, I always liked that vampires were, not just blinded monsters in a sense where, a zombie is a zombie. A zombie's gonna zombie. What is the zombie gonna do? He's gonna zombie. And so,
even werewolves are about
werewolves,
like animal
instinct. That animal instinct, but the vampire was always kind of scary because he can manipulate and play and kind of maybe be your friend, and you didn't know. And so I think that we've lost some of that mystic, that scariness to him that I used to have such reverence for. and I blame Twilight a lot.
Yeah, that was the start of the downfall of the vampires, for sure.
All right, so we've got Dan.
Yeah.
Next.
All right, man. So this is an interesting one. It's The Frighteners.
All right.
Yeah. If it was such a weird movie when I first saw it. I saw it in the theater, and I was totally confused, and I was mad, and I did not like this movie whatsoever. It did not do well. It was a movie that, Michael J. Fox was, just coming off. He was at the height of his powers, comedy, and he was doing all these comedies and stuff, and then all of a sudden, The Frighteners. And I was really confused. And so I felt like and they didn't know how to, it was
advertisement
promoted as a comedy. Yeah, it was advertised as a comedy. And it's not. It's really creepy
and dark.
And, there's some funny aspects of it with some of the ghosts and stuff. But it's serial killing, it's about this guy who has this ability.
Who fleeces people.
Yeah, and he's a con man. And it's a very, interesting and I don't know. I found it when I went back to it. I thought it was before its time. Like the horror comedies that came after it. It kind of like set the tone, and so I really went back and looked at it and saw it for what it was actually supposed to be, as opposed to what they were trying to tell me it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is a good movie. And so for those reasons, I'm out. No, I'm just kidding. For those reasons, I really, I think it really kind of helped change like that landscape of like cross genre.
Yeah.
And Michael J. Fox is just, I've always been a fan of his.
I think this is why it ended up on both our lists, because it was Peter Jackson had done a bunch of like really, really indie horror films before this, and like it was a lot of him like bringing all his powers to bear with a more like intricate story than just like here's so many buckets of blood. Which is also fun. Yeah. But this movie kind of like was the perfect mix of like seeing Michael J. Fox as a con man and getting the comedy with all the ghosts, and it was kind of a mystery like he's trying to solve, and there's demons and dealing with his B story and his trauma from losing his wife and stuff like that. So it was like fairly layered for a horror comedy too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot more going on than what your typical horror comedy. When you think of that, you don't think of this in-depth story and character development and things like that, which this movie has.
Yeah.
It's a depressingly 64% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm pretty sure they don't know what to make of Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
They didn't understand it.
Yeah.
No one understands it.
I don't understand it. When it comes to horror, critics are really, they don't quite understand. I think a lot of the times it's like they watch so many movies a year that it's just like horror movies are just kind of pushed under the rug for the most part. But yeah, it is definitely it is a good one. And that almost went on my list as well. It's hard to do the top 5 when there's so many good horror movies in an entire decade.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, good pick. Joel, you're next.
So my number 3, I actually did see in theaters. I think it's probably the first one of these that I have actually seen in theaters. Was Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, okay.
It made it. It's like 1999, so it kind of barely made the 90's cutoff, but it definitely made it. It's a really dark movie. A pretty bloody movie with Johnny Depp, who does a really good job. It's a Tim Burton movie, so of course Johnny Depp's going to be in it.
Yeah, who else is going to be it?
Yeah, exactly. And Christina Ricci, she's basically a female Johnny Depp at this point.
Yeah.
As far as like the dark and creepy Tim Burton-esque type movies. And yeah, it's a really good story. I like period pieces, so hence Interview with the Vampire was on there too. Yep. And it's just a good fun time for sure. And it was a lot of fun in theaters because I mean, horror movies are definitely there's something definitely different about watching a horror movie on a big screen with like surround sound all around you, as opposed to like watching at home or something, which is fine too. But there's no comparison. So
another good adaptation of like pretty old material, right? That like those stories stand the test of time because there's something about them that's very unnerving.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. So yeah,
the Headless Horseman. Yeah, you get that atmosphere.
Turns out to be Christopher Walken.
Right? Those teeth.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get that atmosphere in the theater for sure, and you can really feel the tone that the film is going for when you watch it in that way. And I've actually enjoyed watching movies like on my phone with headphones in, just to get that experience with the sound. Watched Saint Maud like that recently, and I thought that was probably a better experience than just watching it on my TV. So, but yeah, Sleepy Hollow. I've seen it. Didn't really stand out to me though. Can't say I would watch it. Too often. So that was a different one.
I would probably. It's not one that you'd put on just because it's kind of a heavy movie. It's not like just there for entertainment. You have to actually watch it and everything. Right. So I just wouldn't put it on as like background music or something, or background sound. But maybe like once, twice a year, I'd probably watch it. Yeah. So it's just it's a good one.
You gotta be into it, right?
You gotta be in the mood for it.
Like, appreciate it and have fun with it. Cool. And I imagine Interview with the Vampire is like that as well.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a quote unquote fun horror movie.
Yeah, no.
That's one you have to really
Dracula as well.
Yeah, I mean they're very melodic, I would say.
Lots of deep horror movies.
Yeah. Film with a capital F for those.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. It's my turn. Okay.
Yeah, you're up.
All right, so I'm going to go with Fallen.
That's a good one.
Denzel Washington, John Goodman, Donald Sutherland. Am I missing anybody? I think those are the main people. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think it's a very underappreciated or just underseen movie in general. It's pretty much about evil spirit that can go from person to person by touch. And so someone just touches somebody.
Like the coronavirus.
Yeah, there you
go. Our current living hell.
Yeah.
So it comes from this guy on death row. He is then, given the gas chamber, and it just kind of goes from person to person.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen this movie in a really long time, and because I love John Goodman.
Yeah,
and James Gandolfini's in it.
Oh yeah,
he is in that one. Yeah,
that's right.
And I do remember this. It was at the end. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away or anything like that. But yeah, I now I remember.
Yeah,
it's got a twist at the end there.
Yeah, it's got a little twist. The beginning is kind of connected to the end, but not in the way you think while you're watching the movie. So, I love movies with little twists, and this one is a twist that is unique in that way. It's not just a twist, I wouldn't say. So, I don't want to give away too much, but and then there's the Rolling Stones song "Time Is on My Side," which is
sang in a very creepy way. Throughout the movie,
all throughout the movie, that song is there, and it makes that song very creepy.
Like the one Rolling Stones song, "The Ghost Knows," or the evil spirit knows.
Really good. Check it out. If you haven't seen it or it's been a long time, and you will enjoy it, guaranteed.
Yeah, can't go wrong with John Goodman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you got
Denzel and John Goodman.
Yeah. All right, Emily.
All right, so our last one is going to be power couple.
Oh, all right.
Power couple tag teaming for Scream, the king of all 90s horror movies.
Yeah, that might be on my list as well.
Yeah. So it's impossible to talk about the 90s without talking about Scream.
Yeah.
I mean, just for Henry Winkler alone, if you don't know who that is, like, please look him up. The Fonz, yes. We
Barry also.
That's right. We had a couple meta entries already, but this one is credited with definitely revitalizing the slasher genre to begin with.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me was that horror movies during the 80s, because we saw them all, they'd gotten so bland, and Jason just slashing people and
running and slashing and running and slashing.
Fantastical. And so the genre died for a minute, and it died kind of hard. And slasher movies were just kind of like they were dead because there was nothing new, nothing unique to say about them. And then Scream came, and it was awesome, and it just kind of flipped everything on its head. And so it did. Brought it back. Yeah.
By bringing the slasher genre back, if this movie didn't exist, do you think Halloween H2O or I Know What You Did Last Summer would exist? Because they came out a couple years after. Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think that they could have, because they didn't know that there was such a market for it because of what was already, because the ticket sales were just dying for all these other movies. Because they just gotten so stupid. Like I don't remember which Jason it was or something. I went to the theater and Jason's out there and he just became like this like Hulk thing where like people are. And it's like and he just couldn't die and it's like and he's just stabbing everybody and like splitting people in half and it wasn't scary and it wasn't funny and so it wasn't anything and then this happened. So I don't think that any of those movies would have come through if Scream didn't like blow the form up.
And this was one at the time for me that I was actually scared of because I was just about to go into high school and I could like that one scene where they get like stabbed through the car or something. It was like so much blood and I just all I could picture was like, holy crap, this is what high school's like. Like, you go and apparently you just immediately get murdered by, like, psycho people.
Pretty much right.
I had nightmares for months.
It was pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, that opening scene.
Yeah.
One of the best.
I mean, most iconic scenes in all of horror.
Yeah.
Like
Go Drew Barrymore. Yeah.
And this was written by Kevin Williamson, I think is his name. And he did also I Know What You Did Last Summer. Which, we were talking about, would something like that exist without Scream? And so then he went on to do other movies like it, too. So,
yeah, I think like all good horror movies, it also had a mystery at the center. Like, because horror, if you're talking, I think part of why some of those slashers like died was just that there was no other element. Like all you got was blood, guts, and gore. And like I know that when we write, like when we wrote our graphic novel, like we love blood, guts, and gore, and we want to like show cool kills and stuff like that. But we had to put like social commentary on top of it. Like we had to make those characters mean something.
Yeah, and I think that the other aspect of it is with it, it's not like some like ghost, goblin, or ghoul, right? And it's
a real,
and you don't know who it is, so that I think that mystery part is such a huge thing that keeps you. It's like, who's doing this? Why are they doing this? And I think it's like that aspect, and then it's not 1, it's 2, and you're like, it's like I had it now. And so it just really, it was, just people, and they were doing it to themselves because they were angry or frustrated or complicit, and I always find that man is evil, spirits or ghosts are just themselves, and so I always find that to be the most freakiest thing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely the best part of all 4 of those movies at this point is that twist that each movie is a different person, like different person or people. Minus the third one, there's only one person in that one, but the other 3, there's multiple people involved in this, and just trying to figure out which one it could be or which ones it could be. Yeah, that's part of the fun of watching those movies.
Yeah.
Especially the first time it's the fun of it. After that, you know exactly who it is. But I love that entire series. All 4 of them are great to me. But it's just like after the first time you watch it, you can still rewatch those movies because they're just a lot of fun just to watch.
Yeah.
And
but even when you know who it is, though, I think that you can you want to go back and did you find clues? Did you figure out who it was? And it just adds a lot more depth to it.
Mm-hmm. There's been some you go back and you're like, okay, it's kind of difficult to tell. The first one, the boyfriend, was pretty obvious. It's like he was so obvious that you're like he couldn't be the killer.
Right.
The first time you watch it, and it's like, okay, well, he's one of the 2.
Right.
But
and this one has the phone calls, which is cool too. Kind of like the Ring with the phone calls, and then there's something scary about that. Especially back then, you never knew who was calling you. Right.
Yeah.
So you
now
answer
you're
the
like,
phone.
oh, it's spam.
Yeah.
yeah.
So you never know.
All right, Daryl, I know it's you.
Right.
So they pointed that out in Scream 2. She had caller ID in that one.
Right.
A year or 2 later, she gets caller ID.
And I completely forgot that the original title was Scary Movie, and that then all those scary movies came out. It was just an interesting little factoid.
Yeah, that was the original title, but
it was actually
like
it was. So I've seen documentaries about this writer, and it was supposed to be sort of like a comedy at first, which it kind of is. But
it's got its moments.
Yeah, but I think it was on paper supposed to be more so of a comedy, and Wes Craven then brought more of the horror to it with all the blood and the music and the tension and things like that. And it was going to get an NC-17 rating because of all the violence, which is funny to think of today with what we see now in movies and the violence.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a little history there on it. So that's for both of you?
Yeah. I mean, we've gone through my list. I'm, because we already hit Misery. Misery was mine.
Yeah.
So I got nothing left.
End of interview.
Yeah. All right. Number 1. All right. Okay. So yeah, my number 2 is also Scream.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, we figured that was going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be on, somewhere on the list, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we've already discussed it quite a bit.
So Joel, I think my number 2 might be your number 1.
Probably.
We're gonna round it out here.
Yeah, I think so. So I've got 7.
Yeah.
Oh.
I knew it.
Yeah.
So is it a horror movie? There's always that question.
It's a lot of debate on that one.
What do you guys think?
The central movie is more of a mystery, but there are so many a crime thriller mystery, but there are so many horror elements. I can see where people would think it's a horror movie.
Yeah, I would go kind of on the other side, but it's like I picked a couple of horror comedies. This is like, it's like definitely got horror aspects to it, but it's really grounded in this gritty crime drama, which is really, I mean, I love the movie. What's in the bug? It's like, it's awesome, and like everybody's good in it. It's
great
just
themes.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, you can't go wrong with the Deadly Sins and all, and so it's really awesome. It was an honorable mention for me, for that reason.
Yeah, yeah, it's a debate.
Yeah, it is. When we were talking about how man is evil and spirits are, they are what they are, it really, the thing about this movie to me, which makes it horror in my mind, is the fact that it's about a serial killer with a mission. Like he's killing 7 people for these 7 deadly sins, and there's really nothing scarier to me than a killer with a mission like that. And so it's kind of, a lot of people think of it as a crime drama, crime thriller, which it is. But the character himself is just so out there, but at the same time, there's parts of it that are like, okay, I mean, you're going at it a completely different way, but I can see your point.
Yeah, that moment where like he makes that guy use this like the knife, like penis thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the guy's just shaking, and you're just like, what would you do? It's pretty, it's like he made me,
Well, we just watched Night Stalker.
Oh yeah, we just watched the Night Stalker.
Oh yeah, that Netflix documentary.
Yeah, which is definitely horror.
Yeah.
So it's I think for me, there's something different between, maybe I'm the opposite side. Like, if it's so deliberate, like if the killer is that deliberate, it feels less scary to me, almost because it can be known. But if the killer is just like completely random, just like Satan told me to eat people, it's an uncontrollable force.
It was my dog.
Yeah, the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, that's a good point too. For me, it's just Kevin Spacey that makes it a horror movie.
Sure.
Just his character, his whole speech and lecture in the car, and
his lecture in the car was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
That's what did it for me. That's what put it over the top. And then the ending with what's in the box and all that is what puts it into that category for me. But if it wasn't for that, if it was just more straightforward, they find the guy and then they catch the guy, or he kills himself, then it would just be
the last 10 minutes that make it, that not only puts it on my list, but puts it at number 1. It's basically the last 10 minutes or so of the movie. It's a great movie. Otherwise, that part, but it's more forgettable because it would be just like any other crime thriller. It's just, a couple detectives are looking for someone that's killing people. Some plot that's never been done before. But that last extra time is what really sets it apart from the rest.
Okay, do you guys have any more you want to just mention real quick before we wrap up?
No, go ahead, man. You got one more, right?
No, that I had Scream for my number 1. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I mean, pretty much we nailed
the 90s.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Well, I guess that's it then. Thanks for coming on and hanging out with us.
Where can people find you guys?
Yeah,
absolutely. You can find us on Instagram at The Zombie Game. Pretty much, if you Google search The Zombie Game, you'll find our Kickstarter, which launches March 30th. You'll find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Zombie Game. We tried to make it super easy to spell.
Yeah.
It's easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
cool. Well, yeah, good luck on the Kickstarter. Hopefully
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for having us, and thank you very much for talking.
We love
Yeah,
the 90s. This is great.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
cool.
It was
Okay.
a fun list to make for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right, guys. Well, this has been the 90s Top 5 with Dan and Emily from the Zombie Game.
Woo.
And this has been Scare Talk.
Sleep tight.
Yeah.
Don't let the 90s bite.